Hello and welcome back to yet another Michigan State University Wealth Management Association podcast. This week we have Renee Hof-Lacey joining us. Listen in as she shares insights into the industry and how she has found success. We hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Absolutely. So happy to be here and happy to be being interviewed by my daughter. Who would have ever thought? What an honor. What a true honor.
Very exciting, very exciting. And I know we talked a little bit previous to this, and you've just returned from the Women's Symposium Raymond James put on in Florida. So my first question kind of has to allude to that, but you just attended that Women's Symposium, Raymond James Annual Women's Symposium, and you were asked to speak. Can you just share an overview of what you talked about and kind of go more into depth with how that entire process worked?
Absolutely. First and foremost, it's a fantastic women's event that all my years in the industry, I've never attended. It started in 2019, prior to me actually moving to Raymond James, and it was the largest women event ever, and still is, that they have for advisors. So it's been spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, actually, one of the reasons that I decided to actually move to Raymond James, and I know we'll share about that, but in regards to my speech, one of the things that I was asked to speak just for a few minutes, myself and a few other colleagues. My subject that I spoke about was really about deepening client relationships and believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two things that really have shaped my career from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The topics I chose was also big, being authentic and bringing yourself to every event and not being afraid. Early, there's things that I think looking back that I would have changed had I known.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it was, these client relationships that have transpired over many years of my career have really been built on trust.
Yeah.
And something that you just really develop over time. And it is a true honor to be able to serve for those clients. So, saying yes to opportunities is the other thing that I had spoke about.
Okay. Yeah. No. Can you just go a little bit more into detail about what you mean by saying yes to opportunities?
Absolutely. I was given different opportunities, in the last few years, more so even with different certifications or programs. I went through the private wealth program. I went through the masterclass. We serve a lot of bank for investment banking. We serve a lot of business clients as well. So clients that may be considering selling their business and helping them guide and doing the planning.
Mm-hmm.
So I hadn't had a ton of exposure to that, but again, just having the ability to say, yes, I'm going to try this. Yes, I'm going to
Yeah.
get educated on this,
Mm-hmm.
opened numerous doors. And I also got my SEPA, which is Certified Exit Planning for Businesses. And it just really opened my eyes to so much more in addition to what I already know,
Mm-hmm.
and being open to those situations, or you may meet someone, you may meet networking, whatever it is, saying yes, even if
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable or you feel like, oh, I really don't know anything about that. I can't go down that path. I think you need to be open about it.
Yeah. Okay. And have you felt that saying yes to those opportunities has led you to be more successful in the fact of like making client relationships more prominent or finding more clients? Is that why you?
Yeah, I think the knowledge, of course, is very helpful, right? But the one thing about being a financial advisor really isn't, it's based on relationships. And yes, you have to have the knowledge, but you also have to have the compassion because you're dealing with people's livelihood,
Mm-hmm.
and you're helping them achieve their goals. So it's much more than, yes, it's important to say yes and get the knowledge. And I have a lot of credentials, and you can keep going with credentials, but you also have to have just compassion, really
Hmm.
compassion, and develop that relationship and trustworthiness for the clients and their family.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let me move on to my next question. You mentioned the importance of giving yourself credit. What are some ways that you personally celebrate milestones and wins, both big and small?
Well, honestly, as you well know, I struggle with this to a certain extent. For most of my career, I've taken care of my family first, and my clients, of course, and eventually realizing that, I'm giving, 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 and I'm not filling my own cup. So it was really about 5 years where I felt like, okay, um, I really needed to make some changes in my life. Like wasn't giving myself credit.
Hmm.
And so now I try to take out those times of working out, Pilates, long walks,
Hmm.
also just giving myself the permission to be able to sit down and watch a Netflix show or do something that's just bubblegum for the mind, just to
Yeah,
relax
right.
and really just take that moment, deep breath of like, it's okay. I don't have to constantly be doing something. So as
Hmm.
you will know, I still struggle, but I'm making improvements. So that's what I have
Yes,
to end
yes,
with that
yes.
statement.
Um, just that overall conversation, can you try and relate that back to college students?
I think college students have, I think young people in general, whether you're in college, they just have so much pressure on themselves. And it's not that I didn't to a certain extent, but
Hmm.
I don't think that it was so outwardly shared amongst, you weren't compared. And right now,
Hmm.
people are compared so often, and it's amongst like, whether it's social media, of course, or just, I just think it's just a tougher environment of
Hmm.
comparison of one person's doing this, one person's doing this, and that may not be your path, and that's okay. So I also feel like acknowledging where you are, where you've come,
Hmm.
and what you still have to do, but taking pause to reflect back of like, oh my gosh, look at me a year ago. What did I do?
Yeah.
Um, you know, often even it's just writing that down, or they talk about gratification journals. Things to be able to look back and really acknowledge that you have done something, that these incremental moves are building up to something.
Yeah, no, I also agree with that. And I've talked to countless members of the Broad Business College, and we all talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I think, it's so helpful, but it is also um, it can be a nightmare just because it's constant comparison. And yes, I'm so happy for my fellow peers to be succeeding, but it's a little difficult sometimes when you aren't the one succeeding and you keep, oh, this person got a job offer, this person did this. So I 100% agree.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
okay. So next question. As a woman who has been in the industry since you're very young, how has the industry changed in terms of inclusivity?
Well, that's kind of a trick question. Now, there's been movement. There has been movement. I would love to see more. The
Hmm.
reality is there are some movement in leadership roles for women. There are some newer, younger female advisors, but not many. And
Hmm.
I can't figure that out. It's still under, I believe it's at 16%. Just coming from this women's symposium, I believe that was
Hmm.
the number that they quoted. But it is crazy to me that we still, in the many years, the 25 plus years that I've been in this industry, we are still at the same number. And I don't know, it could just be the natural attrition of, men leaving the industry. And even though women are coming in, men are exiting. But there is some movement, which it's very positive. It's so important because in 2030, women are expected to control about 34 trillion in
Hmm.
assets in the US and nearly 38% of all investable wealth. So there's so much money moving into women's hands, and it's so important because not saying that every woman wants to work with a woman, but it would be similar to healthcare. Like sometimes a woman just really wants to have a woman doctor to be able to relatable, right? And so I think it's so important to have a woman or to be able, whether it be on your team or if you're a woman leading a team, I just think a presence of a female is very important. And it's a shame that there aren't younger women coming into this industry or not as many. And I really don't know. It's been the question. We don't know how it's going, how can we fix this? That's still a
Yeah.
problem that again is very prominent.
Right. All right. And as you know, I did my internship project last summer about this problem, just not necessarily the advisor side of it, but getting women more involved in their finances. And even sitting in on some of the client meetings that I was able to, I just realized that women aren't as present in financial conversations. I know there's a statistic out there that women are mostly the head of the household and will make financial decisions behind the closed doors. Men will run it by their wives. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. But when it comes to actually speaking to advisors, I noticed that they weren't present. They didn't care. They were like, you know what, my husband does this. He'll tell me about it later. And frankly, I understand that it is a complex topic, and I think it can be scary walking into it and having somebody speak over your head. So I do think that getting women more involved, and like you said, the 34 trillion that women will be coming into in the next 10 years, decade to a decade, is really important for us to take charge, have more women come into the business. It's very exciting. I definitely have a lot of mentors as yourself, and all of them are so encouraging. And they're excited for me. And that makes me more excited to help other women, help the general public, and get to the place where I am able to successfully give advice. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. Okay, my next question is, you moved from Morgan Stanley to Raymond James and retained almost all of your clients, which is very impressive. How did you build the trust and relationships to ensure that your clients would move with you to the firm?
Well, first off, it is such an honor and a privilege to, when I moved from Morgan Stanley to Raymond James, it was incredibly humbling. I really never recognized the role of a financial advisor or the importance of in one's life. Now, I knew I was important because obviously, if I'm running the money, it makes a difference. However, I just didn't realize the depths of it. So when I actually did make the call and go through the process, it was just, I just had an enormous amount of people that were like, don't leave me behind. What do I have to do? Where did you go? Does that mean I have to stay? Can I go with you? And all these questions that just kind of kept coming out. And then I also had people that were advocating for me, which my own clients that had referred me other clients, they were reaching out to their friends and saying, hey, Renee made a move. It's a great move. I really want you to, here's her contact information. Here's all the information. Can you, feel free to reach out to her. She'll be reaching out to you. So it was an overwhelming, humbling experience to begin with. So I don't take it lightly. I don't take it for granted, just how imperative you are into their lives in general.
Right.
So it's definitely something to be respectful of. And like I said, I'm truly honored by that experience.
Yeah.
And the depth of the relationship is really where it comes from. And that has something that has just been over time, deepening client relationships and making sure not just like that you care about their money, but you care about them. And I do. I genuinely care about them. I care about their children, what's happening in their lives, remembering things that are important to them and their causes. So that is where you get the security of the relationship. And that, again, would be how you move over clients. When I transitioned, I mean, within 3 weeks, I had 80% of clients already the document signed and moved over. And by the 3-month look back, I had 98%.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I didn't know was I didn't recognize that. I pretty much thought that was the standard. I had never moved my book of business previously. So I was, so many people were asking me a lot of questions, and I was so naive while after I'd done it, I just assumed that that was normal. So I'm like, well, how did you do this? And, I started getting on panels across, talking to managers across the country. And like, I was naive to think, I guess I thought that was the norm, and apparently it's not. So
Yeah. Yes. And I think that goes back to the first question where you need to give yourself credit for that because you sit back and actually think about how many clients that you were able to bring over, and it isn't the norm, and you were very successful, and you should be proud.
yeah.
But my next question is, okay, so what is something you would tell your younger self or younger professionals starting out that might help our listeners, or just anybody who's interested in finance, their own personal finance, or just any Broad member who's interested in starting a career? How can they differentiate themselves?
Differentiate themselves. I think the attitude for young people, generationally, is more about the word I. And really, I think it needs to be, whether it be interviewing for this position or interviewing for other positions, really recognizing that it's a we situation. It's very much teamwork. It's very much, what can you do for the company? What can you bring to clients? Like, you have to remain humble, and have gratitude, and recognize in this industry particularly that you're serving people, and they're incredibly talented people. They're smart themselves.
Right.
And in every industry, you have to recognize, what are you bringing to them? Where's your value? And where's your teamwork, right? So I have a team of people also that, again, I couldn't be as successful because they are also helpful, to me, to getting things, to getting things completed, really. And so looking back at myself, what I would do is I tried to do a lot, and I took on a lot all by myself. And I didn't necessarily always lean into other people because I wanted to make sure it got done correctly. And surprisingly, right? And I I mean, there are things that if you do have someone that you're coaching or someone that you're mentoring or the young person, it is about training them and training them appropriately, right? And having the right people in place and giving yourself grace and them grace to be like, okay, they're not going to know everything that you know. You have done, like for me, in my case, I've done this since I was 18. So I learned from the ground up. And so I met very different circumstances, and looking back from where I started to where I am today. But just these little easy things that I might think, oh, someone should know that. It's not the case, right?
Right.
So I would always say, even as a newcomer into the industry or into any industry, it's okay to not know that you don't know everything, and to ask questions. Often I was intimidated. My world was a lot more difficult because of the sense, it was a very male dominated industry. It still is, but it was not really an open environment for questions. And so it was a harsher culture. Today, I think that that's different. You have a lot of people that you can actually inquire. Everyone's willing to give. So, and to give answers, be helpful. So the more questions you are, the more eager you are to learn, whether it be this industry or another. As a young individual, I think you have to push forward. You have to really be able to know that you want to be in this role, right? If you're just going to be a wallflower, that's not going to do much for you. You've got to really reach for it, and people want to know that you're striving to be more than where you are today.
Right. And I 100% agree. Whenever I ask advisors that I interview for this type of advice, they always say it's okay to not know. It's better to say you don't know and then figure it out, or find somebody else to figure it out or help you figure it out, and then get back to somebody, rather than lying or trying to make something up on the spot. It shows that you're confident, that you know what you're talking about. And if you don't, it's okay. So I do
I would
really
also
appreciate
add
that.
in that regard where I would give a timeline and say, I don't know, but I know I can find out. Give me 24 hours or give me 48 hours or give
Yeah.
me till next week, Tuesday, and I'll get back to you. And
Hmm.
then following through on that. Often I find a lot of times people don't follow through, and
Hmm.
that's so frustrating. So I think that that is a key, something that you can separate yourself from, because a lot of times people won't follow up. And
Right.
so if you go back and follow up and say you don't have the answer still by Tuesday, you can
Yeah.
say, I'm still checking on your answer. I reached out to a few colleagues. They haven't gotten back to me, but that communication is so important back and forth, and that
Hmm.
lacks. And I don't know if that's again generational gap there, just because there was so much on their, younger people were on their phones and they're not
Hmm.
communicating. But I do think that that is imperative. That's a big, big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Um, I just wanted to say thank you again for your time. This was such a great interview. I really did appreciate it. I loved the advice. I loved hearing about your story. And I'm sure the listeners will. Obviously, I've heard it before, but I wanted to bring more light to it. And I do really appreciate the time again. So thank you so much for meeting with me.
Yes, it was an absolute pleasure and my joy to be part of this and to be one of your interviewees. So
Yeah.
I will say God bless all the Michigan State students and good luck to you all. And reach out if you need anything. So thank you, Eloise.
Yes, of course. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I stopped recording.
If you enjoyed this discussion, please like and share the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The WMA podcast is part of Michigan State University's Wealth Management Association, a student organization whose goal is to inspire the next generation of financial advisors. Feel free to follow us on social media at MSU WMA and check out our website at msuwma.com. Anything heard on either the MSU WMA or Spartan Journal podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice.